Alright, we're going to have a quick overview of a quarter scale oval race car. This particular car is set up as a super truck. Super trucks are based on the Sportsman's chassis, and as you can see, with Lexan body on from nose to tail, you are over 42 inches long. So let's have a look under the hood. So now that we have the body off, we'll start with the perimeter. As you can see from perimeter, you've got a front foam bumper, you've got a rear foam bumper. Foam bumpers live in a ABS or Kydex channel. You might even see aluminum or Lexan bumper channels, but I believe the most predominant are ABS and or Kydex. With that said, both front and rear bumpers are mandated by CUSAC rules. Side bumpers are optional. I run not in the premier class, so I keep my side bumpers on just for a little added protection. The backbone of the car is a tubular frame chassis. This car is a TNT. It is 4130 chromoly tube that is TIG welded in a structural frame. Tubing diameter is 1/2 inch for the main rails, and then the cross braces I believe are 3/8. So it's pretty stout. The power plant is in a Zenoa 23cc engine. This is a 2-stroke engine. It is again a Zenoa. It is a pull start. You can see the little pull starter back here. There it is, a pull start engine. They are not modified. These are all stock. You can see the stock muffler, which is mandatory and mandated. You have a centrifugal clutch system. The clutch shoes, it's got 2 shoes that live in the clutch housing, and it attaches to a clutch bell, which drives a pinion gear, which in turn turns a belt, which attaches directly to a hub on the rear axle through the spur gears. And that is how you get locomotion out of this thing. You can see here there's a blue restrictor plate on this car. Sportsman and limited sportsman classes run a red restrictor plate, which is a 8.5 millimeter restrictor plate, while the blue plate in the truck, I believe ECM and Grand Nationals, has a 10.5 millimeter restrictor plate, letting in a little more fuel mixture for just a little bit more oomph. The carburetor is not the stock carburetor. It is a Walbro 194. They're about $50. They are spec per CUSAC rules, so that's what we run. Again, the power plant is a stock, basically a spec motor, a 23 cc's 2-stroke. It keeps the competition even. There is no modifying of the motors. You need a fuel cell. These little fuel tanks here are typical aircraft RC airplane motor, RC airplane fuel tanks. They're 8 ounces. I believe Dubro makes these. You can see you've got some plumbing. Goes all the way to the carb. You've got an inlet, an outlet, you've got an overflow, and a fill tube is what you have. So there's 4 tubes there. Moving on, you use typically they have 2 steering servos and one throttle brake servo. You'll need a receiver pack. I just had to replace mine, and this is the last minute thing I can get here locally. So it's a pretty small pack. I prefer a little larger, but we got a race in 2 days. In here is the receiver and MyLapse transponders. And what else do we have? Oh, we got tires. The tires are BRP tires, and those are, let's see here, what about tires? You obviously need 4 tires. Right side tires are spec'd out for rears and fronts. So the fronts, you can see this one here, it's upside down, but it's a dual band. It's a 17 7/8 circumference with an extra firm host for the right fronts. The right fronts you can get dual band 96 or 96Z compounds. That's what's spec for the fronts. The rears have a little more options. You have a 405, 407, 410, C5, C4. I can't remember the rest of them off my top of my head. Either way, those are also spec for the right rears. This one's an 18-inch circumference and it has an extra firm host. You've got your, oh, here goes. Now to the chassis itself. As you can see, the front end suspension looks pretty intricate. You have toe adjustability in the front end. You have camber adjustability, you have caster, and you have roll center. And you also have sway bar adjustments up front. And there you can see a double wishbone suspension in the front. In the rear we use a trailing link system. There's a trailing link that ties to a chassis point to the hub carrier, and then you utilize crossbars. You can see the suspension's crossbars, and it has a floating live axle, if that makes sense. It's a live axle because there is no differential, so both wheels are tied together through a dog bone. However, they are independent of each other when it comes to suspension. So this will raise and that'll stay put. With that said in mind, because it's a live axle, tire stagger, that is the circumference of the tires, or the difference of the circumference of the tires, comes into play. The left side tire tends to be smaller in circumference than the right side tire. It's got the effect of rolling, say, a tall glass on a table. You know, it tends to roll towards the shorter, narrower diameter size, and that helps with turning. The same concept applies to these cars, as if you want a shorter, tighter track, you want more stagger. If you got a larger, flatter track, you can have a little less stagger. Staggers vary from, say, 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch, all the way up to I think 1.5 inches. The rear end adjustability, we were talking, we did mention it was independent suspension on both ends, so you can change the caster. No, you can't change the caster. You can change the camber independently. The roll centers can be changed through the link adjustability here, and toe can be changed in the rear ends. Oh, you can also change track width, and you can change wheelbase length. And that is the anatomy of a quarter scale race car. I think I got it all.